Hi, let's start again. I do apologize. Welcome to the John Gaunt live stream show. Today, coming from my daughter's kitchen, I'm on the road again, but I'm ready for your comments. Do you believe there's a cover up going on in Southport? Today, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, basically said, bang, I'm telling you, there's not a cover up. But did he convince you? Because he certainly didn't convince me. There's more holes in his story, in my opinion, than in a piece of cheese in the Tom and Jerry cartoon. It just doesn't add up. And I'm going to show you how it doesn't add up. I've made a few notes on my phone so that you understand where I'm coming from. I think he's lying to us. I think there's a major problem here. I think it's a resignation issue, and I'd like to get your views on it too, please. Don't get me wrong, the person to blame for the murder, the atrocity, is, of course, that man whose name, just like Starmer, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to give him any publicity. But I'm so sorry. It isn't just a catalogue of disasters like Starmer was trying to say, blaming everyone. The CPS, who used to run, blaming Prevent, although they're about as much use as a chocolate fire guard. They need closing down or redefining. But the bull that Starmer came out with, evidently there's a new kind of terrorism. It's boys in their bedroom getting radicalized. How many more times are we going to have this nonsense? I remember years ago when Clockwork Orange came out. Clockwork Orange turned people into thugs. No, it didn't. If you had a propensity to violence, then you'd be violent looking like that. It was a great movie. I don't believe video nasties make you into a nasty person unless you've got that within you. It's nonsense. If it was true, the amount of blooming Jane Austen the BBC put out would all be dressing like, what's his name? Not Heathcliff, that's Wuthering Heights, but would all be in petticoats, and that's just the fellas. It's nonsense. He came over today like a bad sociology lecture. But let's go through it. Let's go through it. He blamed everybody but himself. Now, don't get me wrong, a public inquiry, haven't got a problem with that, apart from that's kicking it into the long grass. We've got a clear and present danger. And if we believe him that there's loads of these lads in their bedroom watching videos that are radicalizing them, I don't think so, Keir. I think they're watching other kinds of videos. Probably that woman who wants to sleep with 1,000 blokes. I don't know, but there's certainly, I don't think this idea they're just lone wolves. It'll come out in a few weeks. You watch that there was somebody else involved. There always is. There always is. Your views, please get your comments in. I'll come to you in a moment. But let me talk to you first about him. He was like Pontius Pilate, wasn't he? Washing his hands of it. Nothing to do with me, Gov. Really? Well, it's now become apparent. The one thing we definitely found out today was he knew. He knew when he took that wreath to Southport, he knew what had happened. He knew who the culprit was. He knew about the ricing. He's the Prime Minister. He even said at one point, of course, I was kept informed. And then he hid like the coward that he is, like the spineless amoeba that our Prime Minister is. He hid behind contempt of court, which is what made a lot of people not follow up at the time. I know the law. Most people who work in the media know the law. Why did you give him that slack? Look, if this happened on the 29th, he wasn't charged until I think the 31st or the 1st of the next month. Before you actually get charged, it isn't live. You can talk about the person. You can do that in the media. He's hidden behind that. And you've got to question, why did he do it? And if he knew it was a Rwandan kid, well, not a Rwandan extract, that his mum and dad came from there, which he clearly did. But if he also knew there was ricin and there was the terrorist manual, he should have said, can we all stop, all you hotheads, saying it's a new immigrant? It's not. It is somebody who was born in Wales, but he's of Rwandan extraction. He's not a new arrival. So don't start picking on asylum seekers or refugees, economic migrants, whatever you call them. But no, Billy Big Boots came to Southport and then went straight back to London. And don't forget, he got booed in Southport. That wasn't groups of lads who travelled there by train to see him. See, that was the other myth that he spun. He spun a myth that the far right was sending people all over the country to start the riots. As they said today on GB News, brilliant reporter, Mark White, he said, in subsequent trials, everybody who got done in a particular neighbourhood, I don't know, say Wolverhampton or Coventry, wherever the riots were, they came from that area. They didn't do what Starmer told us they were doing. They were not organised. Remember that time he said, oh, there's 30 cities, all police leavers are cancelled. And there was all this nonsense about it was all going to kick off. It never happened. It never happened because it was never going to happen. I'm not suggesting our Prime Minister manufactured that. I'm just saying that wasn't the case, was it? And I don't think it ever was the case that the far right stirred it up. And even if they were, if you had said, Starmer, we know for a fact he's not a refugee. We know he's not a new arrival. There is a terror link, because that's the thing. I did a piece about this. They said it's not terror. I said it bloody terrorizes me, and those little girls would have been terrified. That's the very definition of terrorism, isn't it? To spread terror, not necessarily even to kill people. But no, by the absolute definition, one person on his own, that's not terrorism. Well, hold on a minute. What about the bloke who killed Jo Cox, a real far-right nutcase, stabbed her in the street? Do you remember him, Mayor? He was described within 24 hours as a far-right extremist, terrorist, lone wolf. If it was good enough for him, why wasn't it good enough for this lad? Why did Keir Starmer cover that up? And that was definitely covered up. He's admitted it today that he didn't admit the cover-up. He admitted that they knew who he was. Oh, but contempt of law, I didn't want to prejudice the case. No one, that was the best line, no one in the public would thank me if I'd done that. Well, wake up, smell the coffee, Keir. No one's thanking you for what you did do. Because by doing nothing, as evidenced by your terrorist czar, who was on the telly today, you made a vacuum. You created a vacuum of information which was filled by other people, some of whom might have been far right. But the idea that you then said everybody who was protesting, everybody who was in tears, everybody who was at the end of their tether, 3 little girls had been slaughtered at a Taylor Swift dance class, others maimed for life, psychologically marred for life. You don't think people should get flipping angry? Of course they're going to get angry. But you could have calmed the situation. You're our supreme leader. But no, you decided to keep stum. And now you play with your clever lawyer speech. Oh, and that was the other thing. You wouldn't get away. You might have got away with it if you had a bit of charisma. But today's conference, you just spoke like an automaton lawyer. In fact, if I'd employed you as a lawyer, I'd sack you because you have no bull, you have no style. Tony Blair had charisma. Let's compare and contrast what happened yesterday. That magnificent swearing in of Donald Trump. It was charisma Mark 20, wasn't it? There's no charisma with Starmer. From the moment he's got in, it's been doom and gloom and lies. And I think there's been a cover up here. I'm going to come to your comments any minute now. So it was like Pontius Pilate. No, nothing to do with me. People wouldn't thank me if I told. People would have thanked you. And you wouldn't have prejudiced the trial. Let me tell you the other bit that's interesting. One, it wasn't in contempt of court because he hadn't actually been charged. Secondly, how come 3 months later you were quite willing to tell everybody you found rice in there and in his house, and you also found the Al Qaeda manual? It was okay to tell us that 3 months later, was it? That would still influence the trial by your logic. So you shouldn't have even said it then. You should have let that come out in open court. See, even your BS doesn't add up, Sir Keir. You've been caught out. You've lied. If you today had come in there, and said, look, I perhaps messed up. You didn't have to say fully. I perhaps messed up. I should have told the British public more. The British public might have forgiven you. There's not a chance now in hell the British public are ever going to trust you and Yvette Cooper ever again. You lied. You lied. And those girls are symbolic of all our children. He went on, didn't he, today about protecting the British people and our children. He's added that on as an extra. He's just so annoyed me. It so annoyed me what he was doing today. And again, compare and contrast that with Donald Trump. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, he knows how to talk to people. He would have gone, yeah, okay. Yeah. What, you expect me always to tell the truth in a situation like that? I can't. End of. And we would have kind of accepted it. But we don't accept it from Starmer. And so now wild conspiracy theories are going to start flowing, aren't they? Slapping a bird's ass says, switch on your mic this time. Boomer. Thank you. Are you there, Gaunty? Taking a Mickey, Steve. Doesn't really help you doing something like that, but thank you. Carly says, I've got sound now. That's good. So you've all got it now. Pip Tomlinson says, loud and clear. Right. Of course, there's a cover up, John. Why all the child photos? Why all the Welsh choir by stuff? Capitals. Pathetic. I agree. Michael Gallagher, a guilty plea means the majority of evidence is not heard. Well, that's true. He's got off that as well, hasn't he? But because this monster, and he is a monster, because he's now pled guilty, he'll get sentenced on Thursday. We'll never know the whole story. Although bits are coming out. The fact that he went back to his old school and he was going to massacre his ex-classmates. His dad tipped off the police, so they stopped him. So then you've got to ask the coppers, why didn't they arrest him and put him away? Why didn't they sort him out when he bought the knives? Why didn't they sort him out when they knew via prevent? What's the point of prevent? What's the point of it if you don't take people off the street? This always reminds me about the paedophiles. They never monitor the paedophiles. They go, oh, don't worry. We've got a multi-agency task force, but then they don't put any money behind it. They don't care. The political, the establishment class, and I've got to say this again, the Conservatives don't come out of this smelling of roses, because a lot of this was happening when they were in power. Everybody tiptoes. The moment they think it's Allah Akbar, Ali's snack bar situation, they absolutely fill their pants. Not the same when it was the white, far-right terrorist, Mayor, or whatever his name was, who killed Joe Cox. No, straight away, we're on that one. This hypocrisy, this political correctness, this wokeness, this rainbow laces in our boots when we're police officers, policemen, should I say, that's where we've gone wrong. That's where we've gone wrong. Everybody's scared of their shadow. Yeah? Ali G made a joke about it. Is it because I is black? You can take that out. Is it because I is a Muslim? Now, ordinary Muslims, I bet you're fed up of this because it's racism in reverse. And it serves no one because it makes everybody who's not a Muslim think, oh, another atrocity, or a car's crashed into that bus queue, must be a terrorist, Muslim. Yeah, and away we go. That's what happens, isn't it? That's what happens. And Starmer fueled that in the summer, in my opinion. Guy Fawkes, all the talk in Parliament afterwards was about the dangers of the internet and social media. They are clowns. I agree. I missed the beginning of Yvette Cooper's address to the House, but by the time I got there, you're right. They were all arguing in party political terms. They did it 2 days ago with the rape gangs. It immediately got into a party bun fight. Is that what we elect these people for? Can't they just drop their tribalism for a moment and think about the victims, think about the survivors? Answer, no, they can't. These people disgust me. I'm talking about the MPs. They're all there, and then they start on, it's the internet. It's not the internet. I'm not saying the internet is all fantastic. I'm not saying all social media is fantastic. But I'll tell you what we don't need. We don't need the internet now censored by somebody like Ofcom. We don't need Ofcom, for goodness sake. I should know. I was the first one ever to be cancelled, remember? You've got an off switch. If you don't like it, turn it off. No one's got a right not to be offended. How many times have we got to go through this? In a newspaper, you buy the newspaper which you enjoy, that confirms your prejudices, that is your political allegiance. You have a choice. It's called democracy. If you want to get a wide range of views, you can buy several newspapers. Well, with the internet, that all comes to your door or to your laptop. Why on earth should it be censored? It shouldn't. And the same as radio and TV. Look at the BBC. I'm going to tie this in. The BBC yesterday, Sarah Smith, her dad was John Smith. They often say he's the best leader Labour never had. He died of a heart attack. Right? Whatever. We'll put that to one side. She was spitting feathers. She hated the fact that Trump was in power. So every positive thing she said yesterday, within one sentence, she countered it with at least 2 or 3 negative things. Now, clearly, they've been given a rollicking overnight, or they've listened to the press, and they've changed their attitude a bit. But the whole attitude of the BBC yesterday was an absolute disgrace. Remember, you pay for it. Even if you don't buy a license, you're still paying for it. You're still paying for it. And it's our state broadcaster. And it's totally and utterly biased against Donald Trump. And it will be totally and utterly biased against an incoming or reform government. I tell you what, I'm going to be voting probably now for reform. But I don't really want to vote for anyone because they're all self-serving pigs with their snouts in the trough. Although I thought today, Richard Tice, who I've criticised in the past, I've got to say he's been making some blooming good points today. Very good points. But why is this situation happening again? 3 little girls get murdered, and Starmer, I'm absolutely convinced of this, was more concerned about, there might be more riots if we tell him it was a black lad whose mum and dad comes from Rwanda, right? That's what's going on here. But that's not the way to give us justice. That's 2-tier justice. That's 2-tier policing. That's 2-tier social engineering. A bad un is a bad un is a bad un. I don't care what their colour is. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care what their sexuality is. Oh, by the way, that was good. Donald Trump now saying there's only 2 sexes, man and woman. He's right. He's right. But that has upset so many people, apart from J.K. Rowling. She's 100% behind it. Well done, J.K. There's going to be a load of trouble this year with what he's come out with. Now, and also, compare and contrast. I think some of the people who rioted, particularly the people who wanted to burn down the hotels where these people, economic migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, whatever you want to call them, were living, they obviously deserved to go to prison. They could have killed those people. But hurty words, no. So what he could have done today, if he was any kind of leader, compare and contrast again, Donald Trump has given a reprieve. He's let out all the people who protested a year or so ago. Why? Or not a few years ago. Why? He's pardoned them. Why couldn't Starmer do that? There are people in prison in this country, and they are political prisoners. Even Tommy Robinson, although Tommy Robinson was in contempt, don't forget that. But they manufacture that round to make sure it happened. He was an idiot for showing that film again. He should just not have done it. But he fell into their trap. However, in a way, thank God he has, because that's brought more attention via Elon Musk. But the bottom line is that our grannies, there are ordinary working men and women who have gone to prison, who are languishing at the moment at His Majesty's pleasure, because Keir Starmer said they were far right. He also said, no, were they far right? He said, I've got you banged to rights. We've got you on video, whatever. Did these people get proper legal representation? Or did their brief say this to them, which I guess they did? Listen, plead guilty. Plead guilty. You'll get a third off the sentence. You'll only do half of it anyway. You're going to go down. If you fight it, you're going to go down for much longer. Unless, of course, you're a Labour councillor who suggests slitting the throats of your opposition. He just gets his court case put off till August. Yeah, all of this was happening yesterday. All of this. Blumbo Toff, on Keir's explanation and logic, we shouldn't believe him after the next incident either. Yeah, I know. That's a very, very good point. He's now stitched himself up. The next time there is any form of terrorism, and he says, blah, 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 we're all going to go, nah, BS. No one's going to believe him. No one's going to help. Like now, people don't report crimes because they don't think they're going to get investigated. Society will crumble. But it's the media. But it's not the media. It used to be the media's fault, right? It's now new media's fault because that enemy is like a bogeyman. You can't actually say, oh, it's definitely him. Although Starmer kind of says it's definitely Elon Musk. I wonder if he'd say that if Elon Musk was giving him the money. Steve Powell, the cover-up continues. No one should believe anything Starmer and his lick spittles say anyway. Don't forget, John, Starmer was chased out of Southport. Well, I'm glad you made that point. I did just mention it a minute ago because that is true. They were shouting him. They told him to go away. They used a different word beginning with F, right? And people tried to say, oh, they were incomers. They were people, they were the far right who were doing that. No, they weren't. You could hear their accents. They were Scousers. They were Liverpudlians. They were from Southport. They didn't want him politicizing the deaths of these little girls who were symbolic of their whole community. But that's what he did. So when it comes to politicization of terror, Starmer was the first one to do it. He was the first one to do it. He's got to resign. He's got to go. And that's before we start talking about the betrayal of pensioners, students, the farmers. It's been the worst 6 months ever. And don't get me wrong, I don't know what will happen next. God help us if the Tories got in. She wants to nick your blooming pension. The lot of them, pigs, snouts, in the trough. There's a huge problem with second-generation immigrants across the West. Well, there is a problem. Yeah, we've got to face that. We've got to find out what the source of that problem is, my friend. But we've got to be careful also not to call them all that, because they're not all like that. They're not. There's a load of second-generation and third-generation immigrants in our country who are contributing fantastically. I'll use the cliche, the health service and the rest of it, but they are. They are. Just like the first generation of Pakistanis who came to Coventry, we wouldn't have had doctors without them. So you've got to be careful. That's what I'm saying. Don't fall into that trap, because the far right will gobble you up if there is such a thing, but also Starmer will. Why was Farage stopped by the Speaker from asking a question under parliamentary privilege in Parliament? That's part of the establishment cover-up, says Steve T. Yes, well, that's how it could come over. And that is how it's coming over. You're right. He should have been allowed. I think it was him and that Rupert guy wanted to say something, didn't they? They should have been able to do it. That's what Parliament's about. It's a shocking episode, this. John, too many cover-ups. Stand down, Starmer. I'll send the taxi. Stand down, Margaret. Stand down. Yeah, we need the beat, don't we? Stand down. That was a great song. They were quite a good band. They weren't brilliant. They weren't as good as the Specials, were they? It's like the way people go on about the Selector. Well, Selector were right until Neil Davis left, in my opinion. Oh, dear, can't say things like that. Trump was full of charisma and positivity. Starmer would have been told all of the details immediately, Lord Kerbharkan. You're right. I've been saying that for months. Trump is charismatic and positive. Starmer is boring and negative. If the Bidens have been pardoned, do they get to keep all the money they nicked, Johnny? I don't know. He basically pardoned them. It's a weird system, that, isn't it, in America? The president, incoming and outgoing, can pardon people. I don't like that, personally. I think that separates the president from the people. But, hey, it's the American way. Right, so where are we getting? If you want to comment, please feel free to comment. If you want to help me out, it's called Buy Me a Coffee. I'll put a little thing there for you in a moment. Hold on a minute. Let me put this up for you. And these are all the thanks to the people who've already bought me a cup of coffee, right? Donated at least a £5. It's buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt if you do want to help out. So where do we go from here? So why did he decide not to inform the British public? The people who pay his wages. How do we contrast the optimism of Trump yesterday and his supporters and the whole of the country? They're all getting behind him. No one is behind Starmer, right? Not even his own party. He never wanted, he was never going to be the Prime Minister. He's middle management. He's the kind of guy who would wear a Mickey Mouse tie because he thinks it would give him personality. Well, only if Lord Ali bought it for him, of course. See, we haven't had all that explained either, have we? The idea that all these lone wolves are in their bedrooms plotting on the road to kill us. No, I'm sorry. I just don't buy that. He's doing that, as you lot have said, simply now, so that he can clamp down on the internet. See, I think he thought with the riots, he thought that was a great gift because that's him. He could stamp down immediately on anyone protesting, and therefore he could get away with a lot of what he's wanted to do. Being unhappy that innocent children are being slaughtered on our streets makes you far right, according to Starmer. Yeah, well, it would appear so. I wonder if I cannot declare my tax on the 31st of January in protest at Starmer and his lies. No, you'll be go straight to jail. Do not pass go. You know the way it works. One rule for you, another rule for everybody else. It's two-tier Keir Britain. That's what we've got. Again, don't mistake this for me supporting the Tories. I'm not. John, there's a new donation site a lot of people are using. It's called Buy Me a Brain Cell. Heard loads of people talking about it lately. Thank you very much indeed, you cheeky sod. I tell you what you could do instead of that, buy me a coffee. www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. If the president turns out to be a criminal himself, does that invalidate his pardons? I don't know. I'll try and find out for you. Starmer hates the British public. That's the issue. Says Lay. I'm glad I read the next line before I read it out loud. You got to be careful saying things like that because I don't think you can prove it, and therefore be ever so careful. Is all I'm saying. Hi, John, says Niven Casey. Hello, Niven. Nice to get you. I'm going to start putting these into a proper schedule. Is it schedule or schedule? So that it'll be a regular time. I've kind of revolted a bit against that because when I was on the radio, that thing about always having to be there at 10 o'clock, be there at 7 o'clock, be there at 9 o'clock, in the end, it drives you mental. And one of the freedoms, like here I am today doing it in the kitchen because of the technology you can. It's not as good as when I'm doing it at home in my proper studio that I've created, which you've helped to create. I mean, Adam got me the lights, but the money you've donated got me the green screens and all the bits and bobs I need. And I'm going to keep improving that. So thank you. And also got me off the dole. I'll be honest with you. So all that's good. So I didn't really want to get into that. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. It's Gaunty. But I think I am going to have to fix what time. Although it's good today. There was 250 odd people listening at the peak. It's 220 now because I get all of them. So because we're on, where are we today? Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook profile. John, Starmer is as dull as dishwater. That's very offensive, my friend, to dishwater. He couldn't deliver a pizza. That's very true. The reporter will probably get thrown in jail now for asking sensitive questions. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Beth Rigby. I mean, to be fair to her, she put him right on the spot, didn't she? And so did Christopher Hope, the guy from GB News. And also, again, GB News, got to be said. Got to be said. They've been brilliant on this and on the... Just get my phone going. Wait a minute. And on the child rape gangs. They are telling people the truth or not allowing the truth to get away. Where was I? John Mark 2V says, John, you're brilliant. Well, you're not, John, because you spelt my name with an H. And now that I'm getting a bigger audience, I've got to get sensitive again about that. It's Jon, you plonker. He says, John, it's better than the LBC studios. What is? I don't think so. I don't think so. I've never been. I mean, that's the other mistake people make. Oh, I still love you on LBC. I was never on LBC. I was only on BBC London. Well, I was on lots of other radio stations before that. And then I was on BBC London for 5 years. Time of my life. Enjoyed it. Not as much as I enjoyed Luton. I had a fantastic time there. And then where was I after that? I can't remember. Oh, Talk Sport. Nearly 3 glorious years until they got rid of me. Yeah. To replace me with a football show. And they really needed that, didn't they? They needed to talk about Wayne Rooney's. Shut up, John. Stop criticising people. Now, they got rid of me because I called a counsellor a Nazi. Anyway, there we are. Long story. Yes, very funny. Now you're showing people how to spell my name. Thank you very much indeed. But let's finish now by saying, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? What are we going to do? We've got a lousy government. David Lammy, Foreign Secretary, called the leader of the free world a fascist, member of the Ku Klux Klan. We've got the mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan. How did he get knighted? He's ruined the greatest city in the world. And then he doesn't learn his lesson. He goes in the Guardian, it wouldn't be anywhere else, would it? And slags off Trump on the day of the inauguration. He then has to make some kind of groveling apology. Did you see Starmer's other address yesterday? He did a video address saying, well done, Mr. President, la, 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 la. I don't know how they managed to get the microphone and his tongue up Donald Trump's bottom. Do you at the same time? Hello. Oh, I'd like to say we love you, Donald. You hate him. You hate him. Why don't you just say we hate you? Because you can't, can you? Because he's the most powerful man in the world. The only good thing that's happened recently is we didn't give away, is it the Chagos Isles? Because we were petrified of what Trump would do. I just think this is terrible, the situation we're in at the moment. Slapping a bird's bottom says, maybe they're confusing you, John, with David Lammy. He does LBC, or perhaps James O'Brien. I'd rather be compared to Lammy than O'Brien. Trump loves his country. Starmer loves Davos. I think that's very true. He never says I'm British in the right way, does he? He stands in front of those two flags. I don't believe he's British in that sense. Do you know? And he supports Arsenal. Well, they're a foreign team, aren't they, effectively? Just a joke. Starmer killing pensioners and letting rape gangs continue. Get him out. Thank you very much indeed. John, I was on your show back in the day when you was on BBC Radio. You ended up getting on Eddie Drive Time show about drug addiction. Sorry, John. I spelled my name, John. Oh, I understand. That's why you did put H in it. All right. That's why you did put an H in it. Doesn't matter, mate. I'm just pulling your leg. I can't be too fussy about my listeners at the moment and my viewers, although it is building. And this is where you can help as well. Please tell all your friends that I'm back. I'm doing this. These also become audio podcasts, and you find these on everything, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Now then, just before I finish, where do we go from here? He's not going to resign, is he? How do we get rid of him? How do we get rid of him? I thought, well, we've got him now. We've got him by the short and curlies, Lord Ali. But we haven't, have we? We haven't. He's more slippery than Teflon Tony Blair. But no one could have been convinced today. If he thought that was going to unite the country, going back to Beth Rigby, so she asked him a hard question. Your man, Christopher Hope, asked him hard questions. He didn't have answers. He didn't have answers. And he hasn't got answers to the grooming gangs. He's now given a limited public inquiry to them in 5 cities. He's willing to spend, he said, 8 million. They spent 7 million on Telford alone. What is it with him? Why is he so afraid of arresting anybody from an immigrant background? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Has there been a load of events? Please tell me. Maybe I've been in a coma. You know, after 7/7 and 9/11, did loads of white people go out on the street rampaging, smashing shops up, burning anybody from an immigrant background or anybody with a name that sounded like Muhammad? No, there wasn't. There's a few hotheads who did stupid things like put bacon on mosque and all that. All of that, which I condemn. It's rubbish. It's nonsense. But nobody did that. So what's Keir Starmer worried about? Or does he just hate us? Does he just hate us? The British white working class. The lads who he'd loved willingly send to war, like Tony Blair, to die in a desert for him, for his political cause. But he actually hates us. And then he wants to add insult to injury, bringing back Mandels. It's just, And I think he thinks he won a massive vote, just like Trump. Well, Trump won because people voted for Trump. They'd had a taste of it. They'd seen Biden and they said, no, thanks, not having that again. We're certainly not going to have the laughing hyena. Let's vote for Trump. Whereas Starmer only got in because he was the least worst option. Do you understand what I mean? Anyway, that's just my view. Ian in Hampshire watched a great interview yesterday with Raja and Mia fighting the grooming gangs in Oldham. Yeah, I've seen that. He's an interesting guy. When I start doing interviews, I'm going to have him on if I can. Anyway, there we are. I'm finishing because I haven't got an answer. When I say what are we going to do, apart from me, I'm going to say he must resign or be sacked. We must get rid of Starmer, Lammy, Rachel Thieves. Who's the other one? Got rid of Haig, didn't we? There's the other one. Rachel Reeves. Oh, Phillipson. Who's so uptight. She's permanently uptight. I mean, imagine being married to her. She'd be terrible. You know what I mean? The education secretary. Oh, I'm so bitter. She looks like it's that old joke about chewing a lemon, isn't it? Sucking a lemon. Anyway, just an idea. I don't know. I might be wrong. Anyway, I've got to go before I get myself in trouble. What's this? Those poor little girls should never be forgotten. That's a nice way to end never. Manchester Arena is an inconvenience for the establishment and is quietly being brushed under the carpet, lest we forget. Well, it's a good one that he brought that up, David, because that was another lone wolf at first, but then it turns out the whole family were at it. And of course, don't forget, we brought them back from Libya. We brought his dad and those kids back to our country. And that's how they repay us. It's mad. I see Trump is starting deporting people straight away. Anybody who's not meant to be in America, they're going to get booted out. BBC were absolutely going ape about that today. Where are they going to go? Who gives a shit? I guess it's the attitude, but anyway. Right. If you like what I'm doing, please press the like button either on Facebook, Twitter, or X, or indeed YouTube. If you've not yet subscribed to my YouTube, do it now. It's John Gaunt TV. This is where, and then you get an alert when I'm going to do a show. You can subscribe there. All the videos are there. There's 111, 112 videos, audios, podcasts, mixture of stuff. But it's just going to build and build and build. And you're helping me because I've been down, but I'm back. My mojo's back. So I want to say thank you to everyone for everything. Thanks very much indeed for supporting me. But most importantly, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, don't forget to tell them you love them. See ya.